The Panthers have made a huge franchise-altering mistake. Some may say the problem is undersized, but I'm actually not talking about Bryce Young. Today, Panthers owner David Tepper fired head coach Frank Reich in the middle of a season where the Panthers are 1-10. But this move is just the tip of the iceberg. We're about to dive into why this Panthers franchise has been teetering on the brink of disaster for the past few years, plus why it's all about to come crashing down. In 2018, David Tepper purchased the Panthers franchise, and since Tepper has owned the team, they haven't had a single winning season. In his second year as owner, he fired head coach Ron Rivera, who had led the team to a Super Bowl just a few seasons prior in the middle of a season. Then to replace him, Tepper threw the bag at Matt Rule. He gave him a 7-year, $62 million contract to ensure he wouldn't meet with other teams and sign with the Panthers right there on the spot. That's how much confidence Tepper had in Rule. Well, at least in that moment, because Tepper's confidence in his new head coach began to fade quickly. After going 5-11 and 5-12 in his first 2 seasons, Tepper fired Rule in the middle of his 3rd season as head coach. Then Steve Wilks took over as interim head coach and led the team to a 6-6 record while almost making the playoffs. But after that, he was not hired as the permanent head coach, and the Panthers decided to go with Frank Reich, who was recently fired from his job as Colts head coach. So including interim head coaches, Reich was Tepper's 5th head coach in just 6 years as the team's owner. Originally, Carolina held the 9th overall pick in the 2023 draft, but in hopes of finding their franchise quarterback, they traded up for the Bears' 1st overall pick. But to do so, they had to trade their 1st round pick in 2023, their 1st round pick in 2024, a 2nd round pick in 2025, and their best offensive player, DJ Moore. Because, that's always what you do when you want to draft a rookie quarterback. You trade away the best player on offense that would most definitely help his development. As part of his coaching staff, Frank Reich hired former NFL QB Josh McCown as his QB coach. And at CJ Stroud's pro day, it seemed like McCown and Reich were all in on the OSU QB. You could even hear Josh McCown saying this to Stroud.
It's right here, come on.
Okay. Well,
I got to do a little meeting.
But it was reported that despite the coaching staff wanting to draft CJ Stroud, Tepper wanted Bryce Young and heavily influenced the organization's decision to draft Young over Stroud. After a bad winless start to the season, Tepper decided to start having morning meetings with Frank Reich. These meetings usually happened on Mondays or Tuesdays after games, and Tepper usually, quote, challenged Reich in these meetings. Which is like, I get you're the owner of the team, I get you're really invested, I get you physically have a lot of money invested in this team, but this just doesn't make sense. You're a finance guy. Frank Reich is the football guy. Your front office is full of football guys. I just don't understand what could be said in these meetings from Tepper to Reich that actually had a big impact on Reich, and Reich was like, yeah, we're gonna be better now because of this meeting I had with this finance guy. Jerry Jones is obviously another owner that is very, very hands-on with his team and has taken some criticism for that. But at least Jerry Jones is a football guy. Jerry Jones played collegiate football at Arkansas and actually won a national championship. Jerry Jones has played football at a very high level. Like, if he's having these meetings with Frank Reich, I'm at least like, okay, I kind of understand it. He's a football guy. He does know what he's talking about. Now, after a 1-10 start, the Panthers have a rookie QB that is struggling. They don't have a head coach, and they don't have their 1st round pick, even though it is most likely going to be the number 1 overall pick in this upcoming draft. Without a doubt, David Tepper is way too hands-on as an owner, way too involved in the football side of things. First off, he shouldn't be telling the football guys who he hired to make the football decisions and make the team better who they should be drafting with the number 1 overall pick after they had to trade a handful of picks and valuable assets to land that number 1 overall pick. Secondly, he shouldn't be firing coaches as often as he has been. I understand the teams have struggled, but a team is not going to be good without any continuity. Firing coaches all the time in the middle of the season is not a good look. And obviously you're looking for a better head coach after you fire these head coaches, but in all honesty, who is going to want to coach in Carolina after seeing how many coaches David Tepper has gone through in 6 short years? Who's gonna move their family there to a whole nother state, seeing that, this guy's probably going to fire me in 2 years if he follows his track record. And maybe a coach would want to take that risk and come there if they actually had their first round pick in this draft, but they don't, and their roster is an absolute mess. So the guy David Tepper thinks he can land after firing Frank Reich is probably not the guy he's going to be able to land, because I bet you all these head coaches that are going to go for interviews after this offseason or during this offseason are going to have Carolina on the bottom of their wish list. In my opinion, Frank Reich should have had at least till the end of the year to try and figure things out. Like I said, he was not given a strong roster to work with, and I mean, what is this? What is this play? If they actually had their first round pick, I would be saying, yeah, they're definitely tanking here. What is this? I mean, this Panthers front office thought, oh yes, 33-year-old Adam Thielen will definitely be a strong enough go-to guy for our rookie quarterback, right? That's definitely a solid replacement for DJ Moore. This team legitimately has no run game. The offense can't run the ball, which makes things so much harder on Bryce Young. This move of firing Reich honestly looks more like a rash, impatient scapegoat job than a well thought out decision, because this does not seem well thought out at all. Also, let me just talk about Bryce Young real quick here for a second too. I see some people saying Bryce Young is done, he's not going to be a good quarterback, it's over, etc., etc., and I honestly do not agree with that. It is just way too early. And like I've said multiple times, this roster is not good. Yes, Bryce has not played well this year, and yes, CJ Stroud has looked miles and miles better than him, and it looks like CJ should have been the #1 pick. But if you put CJ on this roster, I don't think he's playing as well as the CJ we see in Houston right now. I'm not saying I don't think he would be better than Bryce on the Panthers right now. I do think CJ would be playing better than Bryce is playing right now if he were on the Panthers. But I do still think CJ would have struggled if he was on the Panthers this year. Bryce wasn't a bad pick, he just wasn't the best pick for the Panthers. And after you've traded up and given up all those picks, you better be 110% sure the guy you traded up for is your franchise quarterback.